This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. October 10th is World Mental Health Day, and this year we are saying thank you to therapists. BetterHelp therapists have helped over 5 million people worldwide on their mental health journeys. That's millions of stories and millions of journeys. Behind each one of them is a therapist who showed up, listened, and helped someone take that next step forward. Moments in therapy, like asking the right questions, having a safe place to get emotional or cry, or small wins, they can change lives. This World Mental Health Day, BetterHelp is honoring those connections and the therapists who make them possible while showing how easy it is to get guidance from a licensed therapist online with BetterHelp. I've been doing therapy for over 2 years and I couldn't recommend it enough. It's helped me so much with relationships with my friends, families, even myself. It's helped me understand myself better, and it's just made for such a better life. It really has. With over 30,000 therapists, BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform, having served over 5 million people globally. And it works with an average rating of 4.9 out of 5 for live sessions based on over 1.7 million client reviews. This World Mental Health Day, we are collaborating with those therapists who have helped millions of people take a step forward. If you're ready to find the right therapist for you, BetterHelp can help you start that journey. Our listeners get 10% off of their first month at BetterHelp.com/PFF. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/PFF. Cincinnati Bengals traveling to Green Bay to take on the Packers. Packers coming off of a bye week here. Where are we starting with this one, Dalton?
Well, I think one thing we need to mention here is I'm going to talk about the Packers offense, but Zach Taylor, just before we came on this show, announced that Joe Flacco will start Sunday.
Well,
obviously they traded for him. I
kind of thought that was obvious.
They traded for him for a reason. I just wasn't sure that they would do it on 4 days, 5 days notice. You have to come in and learn the playbook and all of that stuff. Maybe you get a week of buffer before you just throw him in there to the Wolves, and he gets to play the Packers for the second time in 4 weeks, right after beating them a few weeks ago in Cleveland. So that's one thing that needs to get mentioned. But I'm going to go on the other side real quick with Jordan Love, and a theme that I've been watching all season, I was hoping for in the preseason out of Jordan Love, is how good he's been at passing at the intermediate level of the field. Right? They brought in Matthew Golden with the speed. He's the deep threat with 4.2 speed, but to me, Jordan Love's biggest adjustment has been throwing an intermediate 10 to 19 yard window. So I want to update that real quick. 92.3 passing grades so far this season on intermediate throws, third best in the NFL, fourth in yards per attempt, 157.1 passer rating on intermediate throws, Trevor. That's just over a point off a perfect passer rating on intermediate throws. And what you notice about this Bengals defense in coverage, obviously we've talked a lot about the D-line. Obviously Trey Hendrickson's a big problem, but in coverage, their weakest players have actually so far been their linebackers. Logan Wilson, Demetrius Knight, a little bit of Barrett Carter, their other rookie linebacker there. That's really where they've been attacked the most, is at the linebacker position. And I think Tucker Kraft could be a guy who's in for a big day in this game, attacking that area of the field with Golden taking the top off with some of the other threats on the outside. Romeo Doubs got hot in their game against the Cowboys a couple weeks ago. But I think that's really something that plays into Jordan Love's favor here when he drops back to throw, is attacking these linebackers and once again getting in those intermediate areas of the field where the Bengals linebackers have been struggling to cover.
I had a Jake Browning stat, but I guess if he's not playing, it doesn't really matter. 53.4 passing grade under pressure is what Jake Browning has had, and we've seen what this Packers defensive line can look like and the types of pressure they can dial up. But I was also going to point out that Jamar Chase has still a 70.3 receiving grade when his quarterback is under pressure. So he's going to Jamar Chase anytime that he's under pressure, and he's played well. I assume that Joe Flacco will probably do the same, now having one of the best wide receivers in the NFL to be able to throw to. So that was sort of one stat that I wanted to mention here. But Dalton, the theme that I have had throughout this show is with running the football. Can you stop the run? Can you run the football yourself? The Cincinnati Bengals cannot run the football. Now, we have talked about the offensive line ad nauseum. Like, we have talked about how this offensive line is not doing anyone any favors when it comes to running or passing. So I'm not going to bring that up again. The Bengals are bad up front, like straight up. But as much as it's affecting the passing game, this is where it's really been an issue fundamentally. They're 32nd in total rushing yards gained. They're 29th in missed tackles forced. They're 29th in yards before contact, but then they're also 29th in yards after contact. So they don't have the offensive line up front, and they don't have the backs in the backfield to be creative and try to make up for it. This is just one of the worst, least explosive, least efficient least successful, probably the best way to say it, rushing attacks in the NFL. And until that happens, I don't care who's at quarterback. If Joe Burrow was still at quarterback, this would be something that was holding the Cincinnati Bengals back. It's just much more of a glaring issue now because there's nothing to mitigate it from. So the Bengals are going to continue to be one of the worst offenses in the NFL until they can play better up front and until they can run the football. And that's just it. I don't care if it's Jake Browning who's starting, if it's Joe Flacco who's starting, if they traded for Jameis Winston. It does not matter. Now, Jameis has done, some crazy stuff under pressure. So, I mean, maybe he could have had a couple of circus plays here there for you. But efficiency, repeatability wouldn't have been there. And it won't be there until they play better up front. And their offense just overall will not get better until they can run the ball better. So the Packers, middle of the pack, full pun intended, when it comes to defending the run. But it should be a game where they're able to continue to do that. Now, I think Cincinnati cannot be a surprise team unless they start to run the football. Packers struggled in their secondary for a couple weeks before they had the bye week, so maybe that goes into it here. I'll go Packers 31, Bengals 17 is the final score for me.
So the fun part about Flacco and Browning, looking at some numbers here, and this is really the reason they traded for Flacco. Flacco's not going to be any better under pressure, but the numbers under pressure are just about identical as Jake Browning. That part's not the part that matters. It's when Jake Browning's had a clean pocket that he's been unable to make the throws. Jake Browning, 55 passing grade in a clean pocket. I think I'm seeing here that's the worst among qualified quarterbacks. Joe Flacco with at least a more respectable 71, right? So if he is clean back there, the theory is he gives you a little bit better chance to make the throws. The problem is if he's still going to be under pressure 40% of the time, those are the plays that are going to make the difference in this game. The Packers, obviously one of the best pass rush teams led by Micah Parsons in the NFL. I'm taking the Packers big because, look, they tied with the Cowboys in a game there. I'm sure they feel like they should have won. Then they had to go into a bye week. Now they have to play Joe Flacco again, and they already lost. They lost to the Browns earlier in the year, so I'm sure they're not happy with Flacco beating them in that game. I think the Packers are going to come out pissed off and play really well at home. 35-14 Green Bay.